Hello, beautiful friends. Thank you for being here on this planet for this ascension process that is truly life changing, but also death changing. And so today we will go through the process of what we call dying, death. Those probably are not the best way to describe it. And so I was thinking about a conscious, blissful release. I will be speaking just from experience of the death process from my past lives, but also from this present lifetime. And, the mystery is very big, so it's not going to be a complete description of it all, but everything that I have self-realized about this process. So I think of this lifetime as the most unique lifetime we have had since the fall of Mu. And so last civilization that had complete perfection, we would call it completely higher dimensional way of existing, would be the civilization that we know as Mu. Some people call it Lemuria. And so in Mu, we didn't have the process of death. We didn't also have the process that we call birth, but we did have a process of existing, living, and transforming, expanding, and also moving through different embodiments. And so, we now ended up in this civilization with a completely different design of existing, and it would be through sexual interaction between our parents, and then going through the birth, and then living, and then dying, and then going into the next plane, which for us mainly until 2020, not for all of us, but mainly meant going into actually still false matrix that existed into the astral plane, and then being immediately sent back. So, and doesn't have to be immediate, but sent back. So it was called reincarnation, coming back into flesh. Whereas when we were in Mu, we were not flesh-based beings. We were light beings. And we did have bodies, but the bodies were made of light. And so that's why we teach and speak about the light body quite a bit these days. So today will be dedicated to this conscious, blissful release. Our existence here is a constant investment. Whether it sounds like it or not, every single day we are actually investing. And we are investing life force. And not only into this lifetime, we are investing life force into what will happen after we leave the physical body behind. What will happen is 100% determined by all that we have invested. So how we live actually is like the investment into what comes after, which is a much more real experience than here. I know this experience down here seems very, very real, and it's part actually of how the false matrix manipulated our senses. The false matrix manipulated everything around us. Absolutely everything. I don't think there is anything that was not manipulated. And so it manipulated us into sensing through the 5 senses, and we would then perceive this as very, very real, and we would be limited by the identity, which was actually also a product of the false matrix, where we constantly were given the feedback of who we are, and we ourselves constantly repeated it. I'm a woman, I'm a man, I was born here and there, this was my parents, this was my childhood, this was my relationship. All of that was actually constant affirmation of false ego personality. So the only way to fully liberate was to, of course, do a lot of work to uncover the true self, the spiritual self. And so our entire life here is an investment of energy into what comes next. Now, what comes next is always immediate. It is an immediate, for me and from my experience, the most blissful expansion that we have ever experienced on this planet. I cannot think of anything more blissful than actually the moment of expanding out of body. There is a river that is a river of life, which is actually the stream of our consciousness. And again, let's say that we invested a lot, meaning that we meditated a lot, we uncovered the divine self. Then the immediate experience will be an incredible, really, payout. And that will be the experience of your super consciousness. Any which way, when we leave the body, and I don't know how this works for really evil people, but I only know how it works for people like us, from my experience. So I'm going to speak about you and me, how blissful this will be. So as soon as we actually peel out of the physical body, and we will go through the process of how to do it properly, then the expansion that happens, it will be, you will know immediately, you will see that you left the body. You will be able to look at the body and not identify with it, which is of course amazing, because you can think about how much we identify with the body. But as soon as you're out, you're like, oh, I'm leaving this behind. This is not interesting. And you instantaneously will be in a very expanded state of consciousness where you actually know much more and you are not limited by the personality self. And yet you will bring with you knowledge that you gained here. For example, you will be able to navigate and ask, for example, that you want to immediately connect even deeper with your divine self, that you want to be with Divine Mother, with Divine Father. You will not forget these big, important concepts. If you practice a lot with the light body, you will also be able to use your light body once you are out of body. So all of this investment into your divinity will instantaneously be available to you. But the river of life will carry you. So the smaller ego that normally would be dictating what we want, what we don't want, will actually cease to exist, and you will be constantly just taken by your own river of consciousness where the energy takes you. So it requires a little bit of surrender, but also there is certain divine will that will be working through us when we depart from the body. So there is a river of light that takes us, and sometimes it might be surprising. And to me, every single day is actually about this very, very important moment of our existence, which to me is much more important than anything else. So every day is actually, in a way, preparation for what's next, because that's the only thing that makes sense. We want to end up in a very good place and to really reap the benefits of our divine work that we have done here. So the way that I can speak about it is because, obviously you and me have had some past lives. Not everybody on this planet actually had past lives on planet Earth. Past lives were part of the reincarnation process. And we are no longer in the same design of how it works. So I'm trying to put together some nice visuals here for us. So my first experience was at a very young age. And I was, I brought with me all the same energies that I brought from a past life. And so let's say you meditated a lot in the past life. So as soon as you're born here, you remember what you need to do. You remember what you used to do. These are the big tendencies that came with us. So for me, the big tendency was meditation. And it was just really what fascinated me. And I really wanted all my friends in high school to meditate with me. And so that was the big passion. So as I was meditating, I was sitting on my bed and I was chanting, and suddenly this tornado force came and shot through my crown, truly a tornado. And it pulled everything out of my spine, which is obviously our consciousness, but it completely pulled my consciousness out. It was not what people would call out-of-body experience, because I've had many of those. This was a complete gone from the body. When you have an out-of-body experience, it's quite different, and we will also speak about it. There is still a very strong connection in a way that you have a body and it's laying in the bed. But for me, this experience at a young age was actually a complete disconnect. Now, I was so disconnected from the physical body. that I was absolutely no way, even in any shape, you know, I sometimes call it the etheric double. When you come out through out-of-body experience, you have an etheric double. The etheric double still will have a shape, and the shape will actually resemble the shape that you have here. So you might have shape that we would call arms and face and head and legs. But for me, at this experience that I had when I was meditating, I actually became completely shapeless. So that just shows me that, you know, you go into a much higher field of existence of your own divine self. So when I became completely shapeless and I was in this higher realm, I was more like a huge cloud of just light, but a huge cloud. I cannot even describe it in size. But I had consciousness, and the consciousness was not the person that I am in this world. So that was the type of disconnect was so ultimate. And so I was hovering as a big, like endless, infinite cloud, which today we would understand as the divine self, above the body. And I was so shocked because I didn't recognize the body as anything that I could ever be associated with. And in the moment, this beautiful divine feminine being came, and I often refer to her as Mother Mary, but again, she never told me that, but she just resembled her. And she was the one giving me instructions on how I have to go back. So this to me was the first, you know, huge experience at a young age that I would call death. But it was like the ultimate death one could experience. So looking back at this experience, I think what was so unique about it is that I didn't go into the etheric double, and that I didn't go through a process of death, but it was the instantaneous becoming of the divine self. Because the divine self is not a woman. The divine self doesn't have shape of arms and legs, doesn't have a face. But the divine self is so much more like that field, like a huge field of just light and consciousness. So my next experience here, which I am often wondering about in terms of, you know, when it happened, but I'm assuming it was actually in the last century, so not too long ago. And I don't know if that was my last lifetime before incarnating back now, but it was a very, very powerful memory that I have of a past life. I'm bringing this one up just because I went through the process of death in a conscious release and fearlessly, despite the circumstances. And so today we're talking about this blissful release. And so this is a lifetime I often actually wonder about in terms of like, whoa, that's some divine power that worked through this. So I was a monk, I was a male monk, like you see here in the picture. And I achieved a state of consciousness which we associate with Christ consciousness, where we have no fear and we don't know any fear. A fear isn't like just non-existent, because we are so connected to the divine self within. And the divine self not only is the pillar of light, but it also is this immense light in our heart center. And so this was a situation where I do believe it was, you know, Chinese policemen or whatever they were. And they were pointing these two guns towards my head. But I didn't feel any fear, no nervousness, nothing. There was like no need to run away, nothing. There was no thoughts. And I only had one, I would not even call it a thought, but actually I just focused, I closed my eyes and I focused on the light of God within me. And I was not actually sitting, I was standing when it happened. And the guns were pointing at me. And when I closed my eyes and focused on the light of God within me, everything just became light. It was an incredible explosion of light. And I always think they shot me, but I couldn't tell you because that was the end of my memory. All became light. Everything was the light of God. So the third experience that I had with death, again, it's a past life. And this one is the Tsunami of Atlantis. And this memory was so profound and absolutely clear, delivered by the divine self. And for example, I never have been in this lifetime to Ethiopia. But in this past life, I 100% knew that I am a woman in a very tall, unbelievably tall physicality, residing in what we today call Ethiopia. And we were a small group of beings who were all extremely tall, which to me was very unusual. I didn't think that we were exactly human, but I thought that we definitely came to planet Earth and we embodied without birth into these very tall bodies. So I could see my skin, I could see everyone around me, and we had, light brown skin. And I could see all the men around me, and we actually had what I would call kind of like Japanese features, our faces. And Creator spoke to us, and the Creator told us that we missed the mark and that we didn't fulfill our mission coming to the earth to help with Ascension, and that the Creator was going to send a tsunami. And, I really didn't know anything about Ethiopia. I didn't know anything about exactly where it is, but in my remembering, I suddenly knew everything about it. I could even remember the rocks, remember the caves. I remembered where the ocean is. I remembered which ocean it is. And so what we did, we knew that we had to be taken out of the body, and we knew it's going to be a tsunami, and we knew it was going to come from the Indian Ocean. And so what we did, again, facing our own death in a way, we didn't panic, we didn't go and hide, we didn't run away, we didn't try to escape it, but we all sat down in meditation, and we were just sitting, on these rocks, and we were facing in the direction of the ocean, and we were just meditating, waiting for the wave to hit us. And when the wave hit us, it was instantaneous. We were out of body. And so, of course, like I said, it's an instantaneous continuation. There is no such thing as some kind of nothingness. It becomes actually instantaneous and expanded state of consciousness. And so when this happened, I've shared the story again and again because I ran to the throne of what we would call God. That's the only way I can explain it. And I asked that we are sent back immediately to make sure that Mother Earth will never suffer again by missing her opportunity to actually ascend. So this is the life here. So that's my, real life experience with death. But I also started to have very regular, I would call it actually a very spontaneous experiences after we went through this accelerated process of ascension around 2017, 2018, and then it was just full on all the time in 2020, when really it's almost like you could say the halls of Amenti opened. And so I know a lot of people have been having incredible multidimensional experiences. So I developed a process of being able to actually come out of body and peel myself out, and almost like a scientist, I would study the different states of consciousness and the energy that is required to actually go through these different states. And so I've been mapping these states of consciousness to be able to assist everyone, of course, because I do believe this is very useful for every single one of us, just like when we, welcome babies into this world and we make it a beautiful experience. And so also departing the body should be an experience that we know how to actually master and deal with. So the out-of-body experiences have been really incredible for me, because it's almost like learning to navigate a completely new world, of course, while having a physical body, but also being able to obviously go to other realms and realities. So that's why I always say the mystery is big. I don't have any definite answers about reality, because I think it's huge. And since you can discover for yourself that there are many dimensions, and then within the many dimensions there are many realms, and within the many realms are many worlds. That's pretty much what my finding is about the nature of reality. Again, what I found is that as soon as you are out of body, you have your etheric double. And in this case, you do have a face, you have a head, you have arms, and you have legs. But this is specifically for out-of-body experiences. Now, 2020, I can't even explain 2020 to myself. It was just like someone flipped a switch and suddenly everything was multidimensional. And that's, why so many people have been awakening and woke up and had so many experiences in 2020. But one of the experiences I really, again, cannot tell you much about it, except for I was coming out of body and I was halfway out. So my head was out, my shoulders were out, my torso was out, but I was still quite, half of me was in the physical body. Now, this situation might happen, for many of us when we are departing, that we will be halfway out, halfway in. So what do you do next? So the key is always to relax. Relaxation is the key. And, there's this profound style of relaxation. And if I gave one advice to anyone who will be departing the body, I would say, the more you relax, the more comfort you find, the better it will be. Silence is very, very important. Personally, I would never want anyone around me when I'm departing my body unless they are silently in love, without any sound, because sound will stop you from being able to fully go when you are ready to go. So, for example, my husband knows all of this. So when I travel out of body, we have an agreement about how silent the room has to be, because, sound will pull part of us back. And I've had many experiences with that. So again, silence is definitely what I would recommend. So one day I'm coming out of body, I'm halfway out, and then I can hear a sound, I can hear a vibration, and the vibration just keeps saying, Bardo, Bardo, Bardo. And of course, I think all of us have heard the word Bardo, and Bardo is very often, word used by Buddhism when they describe the state between life and the next reincarnation. But to me, Carol, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, Yogananda actually said the same thing, that hearing is the last sense that goes. And so that's why I think silence would be so important. And, definitely don't want to have some crying people around us, right? That would be annoying. You are going into bliss and the next thing is bliss. So all these things are important to know, I think. So I found myself in the state of Bardo. And I realized that Bardo is not like a name that some people gave it. It actually is a vibration of this dimension where we go after we exit the body. And so some beings came to help me and they said, okay, you are now in a state of Bardo. And so I had to relax a little more to be able to fully release myself from the physical body. Now, this is an ascension process, so no longer will be this recycling, the reincarnation happening the way that has been happening until 2020. And so what is it now, since it is completely different? Now it is exactly how it was intended to be. If your husband snores, then of course it's going to prevent you from, easy departure from the body, because any sound will actually keep one sense engaged, right? And so the senses must be actually put aside so that you no longer have anything to sense around this reality. So now we are working with a whole new design of our being, which is actually the ancient design, and that is our divine self. So yesterday we did the sacred transmuting flame, and the divine self to me is, we will describe it in many different ways, and that again is from just experience. But the divine self, when it is self-realized, that is ideal. So I would say in this lifetime, the most important goal to have every single day is removing all sediments from the false personality self, having zero attachment to the personality self, releasing everything you can, releasing all illusions, all identity, and just becoming so much more just your divine self. Now, the divine self doesn't have a body, and it doesn't actually need anything like the face and legs and arms. And so it's also becoming much more formless. So in meditation, practicing connection with the divine self every single day, because I know that you will remember me when you leave the body, and I will remember you when I leave my body. And we will all remember the divine self is the key. So, we will not lose this. We will smile from the other realms and say, okay, that's why this was so important, the divine self. Until very recently, it would be very hard to actually contact your divine self. The divine self never disconnected. The divine self was always available, but we were so disconnected. So then we had lower levels of our being, still wonderful levels available to us. For some people, first would come the higher self, and then the soul, and then the divine self. But it was a lot of work. And now we have to reach to the highest of us. And the highest of us is our divine self. And so every single day, even if just for a moment you go within and you command, or you ask, you connect, my I am presence, I am my I am presence. And even repeating I am could be a wonderful mantra to remember when you are leaving the body, so that you focus on what really is true about us, and then releasing all the illusions of, even though it seems like it that we are this person, releasing all the identifications, including, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, all of it, like letting go, letting go, letting go. None of that is true. And so releasing and connecting with our true self. Our true self is obviously the one and only truth about us, and that is our divine self. I have a few images here that let us experience the divine self. The divine self is the greatest light of God that we are. And it is very much connected to the physical body here through the spine. Now, there has been a lot of, people had a lot of different ideas about the tunnel of light that they go through. The tunnel of light that we go through, if we go through it, is actually our Sushumna. It is our multi-dimensional spine. Now, I've been through my own tunnel of light, and for me, my experience was it's much more like an elevator, and it takes you straight up to your divine self. You even might be able to see the numbers. So, we have 33 vertebrae here in this physical spine, and then we have this multi-dimensional spine that continues. And I was able to see that when you go to your divine self, you will actually see the number 333, because you get to the top of your multi-dimensional spine. So that is what the tunnel of light is. It is your own Sushumna Nadi. This is your own multi-dimensional spine. Yes, floor 333, definitely. And so it's good to know that the spine plays such an important role. So personally, I would pay attention to the way that I'm departing, whether it is just going out of body for a little, journey through the dimensions, or coming back. The spine will be our highway. So I have not experienced the dark tunnel, but I would just imagine that any dark tunnel would be just a person, still having some darkness within, maybe the energy field. I really don't know. I've only experienced going through this light immediately into the light. But again, that's why we meditate. That's why we purify. And by the way, yesterday, I think we really achieved an incredible level of purification. A lot of people experienced, a big transformation. So the light that moves through us is the light of the divine self. And I would only focus on that. So let's say that a person made some mistakes in life, and maybe, for people who are leaving this body, they go through some kind of regrets. Our focus is really, really, really important. Burning all in the light of God, focusing on the light, focusing on the truth of who we are. And the truth of who we are is always love. The truth of who we are is always light, and that's undeniable. And the reason for that is that this little person down here is just one little character, and it doesn't really even matter what they did as long as they remember who they truly are, and that is the divine self. So focusing on the divine self, releasing all else as if it never happened, and just being one with that light. I would hold on to it, like what we spoke about in the past, having like a rope, having that spine, and holding onto the rope and saying, I am that. I am the light of the divine self. So this light has been seen, and this image actually comes from Diana Cooper. One of you emailed me yesterday quite an interesting thing actually, that I never really studied with, is it Diana Cooper? I think she's from the UK, and she's been a spiritual teacher for a long time. And apparently in her new newsletter, February newsletter, she said that Shiva embodied on planet Earth on December solstice. Now, personally, I would say it's close to correct. But one thing I would say, from what we have seen in 2024, that it is not Shiva himself, but it is Krishna as an emanation of Shiva. The same way that Christ, as Isa, that we call Jesus, embodied here, same as Yogananda, same as Swami Kaleshwar, they actually are emanations, and so they are Christed beings. And we all are actually Christed beings in, becoming, polishing it all up. But it's interesting that she says that, because, we saw the Krishna baby on the 14th of February 2024, and then again on spring equinox. So quite incredible things. Avatars. So that means the vibration of the earth would have to completely change, which would be incredible. So here, this image is from Diana Cooper. I found it when I was searching for someone who also depicted the 12-dimensional structure of our being, with the spine, of course, being physical into the non-physical. So that's again why the spine would be so essential. One way to think about your spine is almost like railroad, and the train is coming down originally from all the way from the divine self, through the soul, through the higher self, into the body, into the spine. But at the moment of departure, we simply need to reverse the flow. And so again, it's the same thing as moving back along the same pathway, which is the spine. The spine really plays an important role, and so all these images that I have here will be showing a person laying in bed with a straight spine and really practicing the deepest state of relaxation. And we will consider all the different possibilities of what might happen, right? Because some people might even experience pain. So how do you deal with pain? How do you actually focus away from the physical condition? But ideally, we're just gonna go through the process. So the spine again is really important. It is how the light of the divine self is sent into this physical instrument, and then how it then ascends through the physical instrument. So for example, every day it's good to do something to have a flexible spine, and the yogis would always recommend doing some, forward movement and moving side to side, so that the spine is really flexible in all ways it can move. So as we age, it's good to still keep moving the spine, because it will be our highway to heaven. The spine is pretty much the channel through which the light of the divine self flows down. And so being aware of this, whether we are again going just out of body for a while or not coming back, and knowing that stillness is really essential, and that this quote here is actually about us, that in stillness we get to actually know the I am that we are. So the I am that we are is our God self on top of this structure, and stillness of the mind and stillness obviously of sound is really important for this. There are mystics who experience obviously this, and they are still alive in this lifetime. And when I speak to them, they always say what we always share here too, that without the stillness of the mind, one cannot actually experience the fullness of their divine self. And the reason for that is that the mind is the mind usually of thoughts. And so thoughts create disturbance. Thoughts are associated very often with this world. And so when we become thoughtless, the divine self can be known. And so be still and know your I am. Know your God self in that stillness. Here we created a beautiful little visualization of the light as it moves up the spine. And, you know, this is again something that we meditate upon. We meditate upon the light moving up the spine, aligning our breath with it. Breath is another very important tool we will need at the moment of departure from the body, or if you do out-of-body travel. Breath is absolutely essential. So learning to actually connect with your breath in a very profound way, to breathe so slowly, so deeply, and moving the energy up the spine on your in-breath, and then bringing the light of God back into your being on the out-breath. So this is just a practice for us here to always, every day, do some of these practices, again, as a huge investment that I know will pay off for all of us if we choose to do this. And of course you want to have sensations, right? Because it should be not just imagination, but also the sensation. So you will physically feel it, that you are doing that. Ultimately, when we come out of this body, we want to get to the highest level possible. And that's really, you know, I think an ambition that we all should have. And that is to be one with the light of spirit. Again, there are many different planes that we might end up in. And for some people, it could be what we call the astral plane. And for some people, it could be the causal plane. But there's also the option of entering the absolute. And so that's where I think the ambition is really cool, is how high can we make it? How much can we completely actually go into the absolute instead of being caught by any even lower planes? And so ultimately all is light, all came from the light, and all is spirit. But there is also a plane that we call the astral plane. And the astral plane these days have been purified and has been restructured so that when we come out of body, for us here in this, you know, generation, that we will be able to actually continue our journey, continue our ascension, and that means expansion into more. So it will be an expansion, and it will be the evolutionary spiral. And that is actually how it was originally intended, that nobody will be repeating like the first grade again and again and again and again, but that we always will be ascending, which means quite differently from reincarnating. First of all, there is no need for flesh, and that is actually really the flesh as we know it is the result of the false matrix. And again, the second coming of Christ would explain how it all happened. But as beings of light, we don't need to have flesh exactly and be limited by all the different needs and wants of the flesh. But we will have a body of light, and the body of light could actually be in a shape, similar shape that you have today. I've seen many beings in many different dimensions. And actually, most beings have some kind of shape, and they even have facial expressions, even though they could look completely different from from humans, yeah? But they would still have arms and legs, and so we could say humanoid shape. So we will then be choosing the embodiment into these light forms that are not dependent on the density that we have here. Definitely no more survival. So it's much more about just experiencing creation as a being of light in some kind of body. And then when you decide through your consciousness that you would like to experience something else, and you would maybe even need a different body, you will simply create it with light again. So that takes away the process of what we call birth and death. It's much more what we would then call free will. The number one thing that I would practice every single day, and I recommend it, is learning to relax, let go, trust, and surrender, and even assuming the Shavasana posture that we call the corpse posture. And that means total deep, deep relaxation. Now, you might be surprised how difficult it is actually for us to relax every single muscle. So it's about a skill. The skill that I learned when I was a teenager, it was called autogenic training. And I don't know if you guys heard about autogenic training, but the way that autogenic training actually worked is that you would focus on one body part at a time, for example, your foot, and then you would just focus on the foot and you would experience the feeling of being heavier and heavier and heavier, and warmth and expansion, and almost like you letting go of your foot, and then you would move to the next foot, and then you would move up your body. And so every body part was a focus for a moment, and you would then let go. So the letting go would be actually of any tension. As you can imagine, any tension, and very often tension actually goes unnoticed. So that's definitely a practice to be mastered. When we are leaving our body, we are leaving a very tight suit. And so we first need to release and make the suit a little more loose. And then we can easily slip out. So practicing definitely, complete release, complete relaxation, practicing being on your back so that your spine can be straight. So for me, being on the back is also, supporting your neck in a way that you are not lifted up, so that your neck is an extension of your straight spine. I've experimented with so many cervical pillows, and, we wanted to create one too, but it was just never perfect. And there is perfection that, would be preferred, and that would be that the neck truly is a perfect straight extension of the spine, so that you are in a straight line. Some people like to support themselves with different pillows to make this as comfortable as possible. But again, every day, even practicing for 10 minutes in this posture, complete letting go, releasing all tension, meditating like that, and focusing on the breath. So slow, deep breath. Really going deep with your breath into the spine, and again moving the breath very slowly and very deeply through the spine. So, I personally prepare for this transition every single day through mastery. That means getting better at it. Getting better at it. And so that means it's fun to see how much more we can let go. It's really fun when you start experiencing yourself beyond the body, of course. And I have yet to find anything more fascinating. So this little practice can lead to incredible expansion of consciousness, especially when you succeed in actually peeling out, which means peeling out of the physical. And then, you would be standing in your bedroom, and the first thing you would, of course, see is your bedroom, because that's where you end up. And then, of course, the river takes you to your next destination. So the breath is definitely something that we want to master as well. To be able to be completely still, to be, and as we are speaking here about the final release, to always be in divine love. And not in divine love with just our loved ones who, might be around us, but actually with divine love, which is the love of your divine self that exists simply as energy, and it doesn't need an object. So in this world, love usually seeks some kind of object of love, but the divine love is the ever-present energy of your divine self. And so when I do this, actually, I do have my arms along my body, and I found, for example, here the Shavasana is, I would recommend it, or you can have the arms even more open or close to yourself, but definitely it's about complete letting go. So I would not have my arms on top of me like this lady has, but definitely just the spine. So divine love is, again, like, let's say that this is our moment of final transition. We know it, we feel it. Maybe our divine self already let us know, because when we are connecting with the divine self, we will know when the time has come to move on. It could be, simply by fulfilling a certain mission here. It doesn't have to be through age at all. And so when we focus within, it's good to stop focusing on this lifetime, because this lifetime obviously will be like a poof, gone. We will not even remember it. So our focus is the divine self, divine love, divine light. Smiling in fearlessness. I also recommend that. Smiling is a good idea. Just allowing the body to relax so much more. For some people, the moment of transition seems stressful, and so we want to take the stress away from it all. And also helping our loved ones, to just relax. This is going to be very, very blissful. One split second, and bliss will be bigger than anything that anyone has ever felt. In this world, I don't know anything that could be more blissful. Nothing. Truly nothing. So this is not just, the chemistry of the body, because once you are out, it's the chemistry of your life stream that is so, so, so blissful. So we smiling into this blissful release, if we can, of course. Focusing on the third eye. This is the key. Absolutely the key. I focus on my third eye all the time. And when I meditate, but also, whatever you do, you chanting, focus on the third eye. You can always, throughout the day, just close your eyes, focus on the third eye. It requires lifting your gaze into the middle point. This is something, and I mentioned it yesterday on the evening call. If there was one thing that I would want to master in this lifetime, because it will be so useful, is focusing on the third eye. It actually even changes the brain waves. So you bring the right and the left hemisphere into this point in the middle, and you lift your physical eyes into the middle point and you gaze, but with your eyes closed. I have this lady here with her eyes open, just so that we see that the eyes are not idle and the eyes are actually focused upwards. This process I use, so for example, when you get sick and your body's not feeling well, when you focus on the third eye and you really master your focus, you will not feel pain. You will not feel the sickness as if it is something you are experiencing. So I use that for that as well, to actually disconnect from the physical senses and to go into the oneness, which is the light of the divine self. And this technique actually helps immensely. And when we master it, we might actually be able to completely switch off all sensations, which then leads, of course, to the release. And then you are released into the light, even if you just, going for a little while and you coming back. So this all is actually very simple, I believe. I always think if I can do it, everybody else can do it. If it was just Yogananda who could do it, I would think, oh my gosh, we'll never learn how to do this. But we can all really learn this. And this, I see the question here, are we ascending in our bodies? So I've experienced ascension several times, and this will still be very useful for any situation, including ascension in the body. The ascension in the body that I experienced is that when the solar flash comes, it's almost like when, enough of the dirt has been removed, the solar flash will come. And that's why it has been happening personally for several people on this planet. They've experienced the solar flash already. Then that too requires surrender. It too requires letting go, because you're going from one reality to a next reality. And then there is no even what we would call any awareness of death. And of course you end up in another reality, and you do have a body, but not the same density of the body. You end up in a new body, as if your body got instantaneously restored, renewed, rejuvenated. So that's my experience. So like I said, you still will have a body, but it will not be the density that we have here. And it still will have a shape of a humanoid. And it will be just instantaneous rejuvenation without bringing with us any dysfunctions or any disease or any whatever it is. So gazing into the third eye, I recommend practicing it, learning it, and then we're gonna take it to the next stage, right? So let's say I'm in bed and I know this is my final day on planet Earth. I want to prepare myself so well for this incredible moment. And so setting yourself up, that means laying down, extending your spine, relaxing deeply, engaging the breath, focusing on the third eye, and then chanting Om internally. Letting yourself to become the Om, feeling the Om in the third eye. Sorry, I just want to look at the chat here for a moment, and then we'll continue. We have an incredibly wonderful collective here, very supportive, with so much knowledge. Thank you. And so I chant Om in my third eye as a habit in the middle of the night. So it's a wonderful way to actually connect with your higher consciousness, is to lay in bed, on your back, focusing on the third eye, gazing up. I know at the beginning it doesn't feel so comfortable gazing up, but I say it becomes your first nature. When you get used to it, just like it is with everything, it becomes so easy, so natural, and it becomes the one and only place where you want to focus when you close your eyes. And it becomes so easy that your muscles of your eyeballs don't strain anymore. And then you become one with your Christ consciousness in your third eye, and you go beyond all dualities. And then when you chant Om mentally in your third eye, it also becomes a wonderful habit. And that's why we want to practice now. You actually will then release yourself through your third eye. So here would be the final moment of releasing yourself into the higher realms, and that would be light. So we looked at posture, we looked at breath, we looked at the third eye, Om, and now it is visualizing light, surrounding yourself with light, focusing on the light of God, focusing on the love of God, and of course God meaning your God self, your divine self. And so instead of thinking about anything else, thinking light. Increasing your inner light. Now personally, I would not want to wait for the last moment of my life to start increasing my inner light, and that's why it's actually our investment, our life's work, to increase inner light every day, and to cleanse and cleanse and cleanse, get excited about this incredible, purpose that we have as children of God that move through cosmos, and we are moved by our highest consciousness. So increasing inner light every single day, moving the light through the spine, cleansing every day, like taking a shower, it's a good idea. So every day is simply a preparation for not only what's next, like tomorrow, but also what's next in our next mission and next destiny. We have been speaking about the importance of concentration, so we want to practice the ability to concentrate, to have the willpower, to bring all the energy into one single point, focusing on the light, and visualization. So we want to be visualizing the light of God around us. And then silence. I had an experience which taught me so much about, the importance of silence. And I know I've shared this one before, but, I always find these personal experiences the most valuable. Our senses is really how we perceive this reality. So our senses, and mainly, of course, our sense of seeing, our sense of being able to touch something, right? And hearing, those are, I think, the main senses that give us a perception of reality. And so when you think about it, those senses as seeing, hearing, touching, and of course then we have the sense of tasting and smelling. But number 1, 2, and 3 would be seeing, hearing, and touching. They give us actually a sense of something is real in quotation marks. And because it's only in quotation marks, you can think of this as if when you go to the movie theater and you are watching and hearing, you're only using 2 senses to perceive the movie as real. So you know for sure you are still in a movie theater. But what if you were in a different movie theater? And in that movie theater, you would have 5 senses perceiving the movie. You would not know that that's a movie, and you would call it reality. So this is really how reality is perceived. So when we practice and we meditate enough, we are actually mastering the withdrawal of all perceptions of reality, including, of course, hearing. So that's why silence is important. Now, one day I was visiting my daughter and my granddaughter, and in the morning I thought I'm just gonna wait for everyone to wake up, so I was just laying in bed practicing this type of meditation, but I thought I would just listen to Orin. So I put my phone next to me and I had Orin playing, but at the same time I started to peel out of the body. So now I'm peeling out of body, but Orin is playing. And so I peeled out of my physical body, but I was unable to go anywhere. I had to lay down my etheric body next to my physical body because hearing was not liberated. So I got to actually experience, the pull back. Even though I was out, I was not able to depart because my hearing still had to listen to Orin. So yeah, I would definitely go into complete silence, and the only Om would be the Om internally into the third eye. If it is external, it will pull you back. So that's, all the things that I got to experience and we will all experience. So again, the tunnel of light that people describe or experience, it's actually their own Sushumna Nadi. And we will all get to experience this, of course, as we depart. And the Sushumna Nadi here, what I found so interesting in this picture is that actually it shows it like a tower. And for me, it always, the way that I experience it, is a tower. So also when you find yourself in a tower, then you will know that if you chant Om, even when you get out of body, and let's say that's your final departure, you will remember to chant Om. Your consciousness will remind you that that's a cool thing to do, and that actually Om will move you through the tower higher and higher and higher. So again, just remembering all these things, you will remember them when you go out of body, and even if it is the final departure. And then the final thing that we have for today, before we take a break for a few days, is now we also are naturally activating, it's happening through our divine nature, our light body. And so again, when we get out of body, we now have the option to actually instantaneously step into a light body. And you can call it in, you can actually activate it yourself once you're out. You will remember, and you will say, oh, hang on a second, I remember my light body. And then you start doing what we do here. Same thing. Get the spin going. Spin your light body. Step into the vehicle of light. And again, let the river of your own energy take you to the next destination. And it's just so exciting, you know. I always think about it like this is the most exciting thing that can ever happen to us, is to start moving into these beautiful dimensions and have a lot of fun.